Welcome to Monk's Temple. Find a comfortable place to rest. Perhaps adjust your posture, take a deep breath, and let the weight of the day settle. This is not a lecture. Think of this as a conversation, a shared exploration. We are going to wander through an ancient forest of ideas together, and see what we discover about the most fascinating subject there is, you. There is a story told in the Buddhist tradition about a man who was shot by a poisoned arrow. His family rushed to find a doctor, but the man stopped them. He said, "I will not have this arrow removed until I know who shot it. What is their name? What is their clan? Are they tall or short? What kind of bow did they use? What was the arrow made of?" The man would die, of course, before his questions were answered. The Buddha used this story to say that we often do the same thing with our own suffering. We get so lost in analyzing it, in blaming others, in constructing elaborate theories about why our lives feel broken, that we forget the most important thing: the arrow is already in us. The wound is real. And the only question that matters is, how do we heal? Let me tell you a story about a woman I once knew. Let us call her Maya. Maya was a successful architect in a bustling city. She designed beautiful, functional spaces for other people, but her own inner world felt like a chaotic, unfinished construction site. She was in her late 30s, and by every external measure, she had built a good life. But she felt empty. She would come home after a day of creative work and feel a familiar wave of nothingness wash over her. She filled her evenings with social engagements, with television, with busy work, but the emptiness always returned. Maya was convinced the problem was her job. So she switched firms. The emptiness followed her. She was convinced the problem was her city. So she moved across the country. The emptiness was there, waiting for her in her new apartment. She was convinced the problem was her relationships. So she ended a long-term relationship, hoping that the space would finally feel full. But the space just felt emptier. This is the poisoned arrow. Maya was asking all the wrong questions. She was asking about the bow, the archer, the clan. She was looking outside herself for the source of a wound that was entirely within. The healing began, as it always does, when she stopped looking for someone to blame and started looking inward. This is the first and most difficult step. It requires a radical kind of honesty. It requires admitting that maybe, just maybe, the common thread in all your disappointments, all your frustrations, all your unshakable discontent, is you. Not in a self-blaming way, but in an empowering way. If the problem is inside you, then the solution is inside you too. You are not a victim of the world. You are a student of your own soul. If this journey inward speaks to something deep within you, if you are ready to explore the architecture of your own soul, please consider subscribing to Monk's Temple. By clicking that button, you are not just following a channel. You are joining a community of fellow travelers, all asking the same essential questions. It is a small gesture that says yes to the path. So go ahead, take that step, and let us continue this exploration together. Now, let us return to Maya. Her turning point came during a silent meditation retreat. She had gone hoping for peace, for the emptiness to finally be filled with some profound spiritual experience. Instead, she was confronted with the relentless chatter of her own mind. For days, she sat with boredom, with frustration, with judgments about the people next to her. It was miserable. But on the third day, something shifted. She was focusing on her breath, as the teacher had instructed. In, out. In, out. A thought arose, this is pointless. And for the first time, instead of getting swept away by the thought, she simply noticed it. She saw the thought arise, hang in the air like a cloud, and then dissolve. And in that tiny gap, in that split second between the thought dissolving and the next one arising, there was nothing. But it wasn't an empty nothing. It was a spacious nothing. It was the silence between two notes of music. Maya had her first direct glimpse of something the Buddha pointed to over 2,000 years ago. He taught that our minds are like a monkey, constantly swinging from branch to branch, never still. This monkey mind creates a constant state of agitation, of dukkha, which we can translate as suffering or unease. But the Buddha also taught that beneath the swinging monkey, there is a still, clear pool of awareness. The monkey makes ripples on the surface, but the depths remain untouched. Maya had touched the depths, just for a moment. It was a glimpse of what it feels like to not be completely identified with the endless stream of thoughts. It was a taste of freedom. She realized that the emptiness she had been running from was not an emptiness of something, but an emptiness for something. It was the space in which a new life could be built. She came home from the retreat not with answers, but with better questions. The question was no longer, how do I fill this emptiness, but, who is this I that is experiencing the emptiness? This is the question at the heart of all genuine spiritual inquiry. It is the question that can lead us, step by step, out of the labyrinth of our own making. We begin here. Not with a map of distant lands, but with a flashlight to explore the territory of our own minds. We begin with the willingness to sit still, to feel the wound of the arrow, and to ask the question that matters, who am I, really? Not the story I tell myself, not the roles I play. But the one who is aware of it all. The one listening to these words right now. That is where the journey starts. Thank you for continuing this journey with me. Let us take another step deeper into the forest. After her retreat, Maya returned to her life, but something had changed. She no longer felt desperate to escape her emptiness. She had glimpsed something beneath it, a stillness that was always there. But she also noticed something else. Old patterns kept resurfacing. She would find herself in conflicts at work that felt strangely familiar. She would react to criticism with a defensiveness that was completely out of proportion. It was as if some hidden force was pulling her strings, and she had no idea what it was. This brings us to a fundamental truth. The mind is not a single, unified thing. It is more like a house with many rooms. Some rooms are bright and open. But other rooms are locked. Cellars we never visit. Attics stuffed with old furniture we forgot we had. And in those dark, forgotten rooms, things are moving. Things are alive. In the Buddhist tradition, this is discussed through the concept of the anusaya, meaning latent tendencies. These are ingrained habits of mind, patterns of craving and aversion that lie deep in the unconscious, waiting for the right conditions to spring into action. You might think you have conquered your anger, but then someone cuts you off in traffic, and it erupts before you can even think. It was sleeping, not gone. Modern psychology calls this the unconscious. Carl Jung discovered that the unconscious is not just a storage closet. It is a dynamic, living world within us. And it contains not only our personal repressed material but also what he called the collective unconscious, a vast ocean of inherited patterns that shape human experience across all cultures. This is where the path of cleaning up begins. It is the courageous work of unlocking those dark rooms and making friends with what lives there. Let me tell you another story. This one is about a man I will call James. James was a gentle soul, a therapist who dedicated his life to helping others heal. He was patient and endlessly compassionate with his clients. But in his personal life, James had a problem. He could not say no. He said yes to every request, every demand on his time. He said yes to people who drained him, who took advantage of him. And underneath his gentle smile, he was drowning in resentment. He began to explore this pattern. Where did this inability to set boundaries come from? As James talked about his childhood, a picture emerged. He was the oldest of 5 children in a household where his mother was overwhelmed and his father was emotionally absent. From a very young age, James learned that his job was to be the responsible one, the helper. His own needs, his own wants, his own anger, all of this was pushed down. It was not allowed. To need something for himself was selfish. James had built his entire identity around being the kind, helpful one. But down in the cellar, a very different James was living. A James who was exhausted. A James who was furious. A James who wanted to scream, "What about me?" This hidden James never got to speak. Instead, his anger leaked out sideways. It came out as passive-aggressive comments. It came out as physical tension and headaches. And it came out in his dreams, where he would often be fighting off shadowy attackers. This is the shadow, the term Jung used for the parts of ourselves we have rejected. The shadow is not evil. It is simply disowned. It is the anger we were told was bad, so we learned to smile when we were furious. It is the ambition that was called selfish, so we learned to play small. It is the sadness that was seen as weakness, so we learned to pretend we were fine. The shadow does not go away because we ignore it. It grows stronger in the dark. And it projects itself onto the world. We see in others what we cannot see in ourselves. The person who drives you crazy with their laziness, is it possible you have a disowned part of yourself that wants to rest? The politician you hate with a burning passion, what quality do they embody that you cannot admit exists in you? The Buddha understood this mechanism of projection. He taught that the roots of suffering are greed, hatred, and delusion. And he taught that we must uproot these tendencies, not project them onto others. When we hate someone, we are often seeing our own unacknowledged hatred reflected back. When we are consumed by greed, we are often trying to fill a void that can only be filled by turning inward. Cleaning up is the work of reclaiming these projections. It is the practice of asking, whenever we have a strong emotional reaction, what is this showing me about myself? It is the humility to realize that the world is often a mirror, and the face we see in it is our own. This work requires a kind of radical honesty. It means admitting that we are not just the hero of our own story, but also the villain. It means owning our pettiness, our envy, our rage. It means loving ourselves not in spite of these things, but including these things. Because only by embracing the full spectrum of our humanity can we become whole. The Buddha did not teach that we should become passionless. He taught that we should transform our passions. Anger, when owned, becomes assertiveness and the energy to set boundaries. Greed, when owned, becomes ambition and the drive to create. The shadow, when brought into the light, loses its demonic power and becomes a source of strength. James's healing began when he started to listen to his resentment instead of judging it. He sat with the feeling of wanting to say no. He explored the fantasy of letting people down. And underneath the guilt, he found a young boy who had never been allowed to have needs. He began, slowly, to give that boy permission to exist. He started with small no's. No to a request that felt excessive. No to a social engagement he dreaded. And each time he said no and the world did not end, he grew a little stronger, a little more whole. This is the path of cleaning up. It is the work of a lifetime. There is no finish line. But with each descent into the cellar, with each disowned part we retrieve, we become more real, more authentic, more ourselves. We stop projecting our inner turmoil onto the world and start taking responsibility for it. And in doing so, we take a massive step toward becoming who we truly are. Thank you for staying with me. Let us continue our exploration. James learned to say no. He began reclaiming his time, his energy, his life. But something unexpected happened. As he cleared out the cellar of his resentment, as he made peace with the angry boy inside, he found himself facing a new challenge. His relationships changed. Some friends, accustomed to his endless giving, drifted away when he stopped being so convenient. His role in his family shifted, and not everyone was happy about it. He felt, for a while, unmoored. He had spent 40 years being one kind of person, and now he was becoming someone else. Who was he, really, underneath all the roles? This brings us to the next phase of our journey. If cleaning up is about integrating the shadow, then what comes next is about expanding the very structure of who we think we are. It is about growing up. Imagine a tree. A seed contains the potential for the entire tree within it. But that potential can only unfold through stages. First a sprout, then a sapling, then a young tree with flexible branches, then a mature oak with deep roots and a wide canopy. Each stage is necessary. You cannot skip from seed to oak. And each stage transcends and includes the previous one. The oak does not destroy the sapling, it fulfills it. This is how human development works. Psychologists have mapped this territory extensively. They have discovered that our sense of self, our identity, evolves through predictable stages. And these stages shape everything about how we experience the world. Let me tell you a story about a man I will call David. David was a brilliant engineer in his early 30s. He was exceptionally good at his job, solving complex problems that left others baffled. But David had a blind spot. He could not understand why his colleagues did not like working with him. In meetings, he would dismiss their ideas without consideration. If someone made a mistake, he would point it out publicly, with surgical precision. He was technically right, always. But he was relationally clueless. David was not a bad person. He was simply operating from a particular stage of development. His sense of self was centered on his own abilities, his own intelligence. Other people existed, but their perspectives did not feel as real as his own. They were background figures in the movie of his life. This is what we might call an egocentric orientation. It is not malicious. It is simply a limited lens. The Buddha encountered this same limited lens in his students. He saw how people were trapped in a narrow view of the self, the idea of a permanent, separate I that must be protected and defended. He taught that this clinging to the self is the very root of suffering. But he also taught a path, a way of gradually loosening the grip of this small self, of expanding the circle of identity to include more and more of life. This expansion happens through stages. From the egocentric, we can grow into what is called the ethnocentric stage. Here, our identity expands to include our group, our family, our team, our nation. We feel a deep sense of belonging and loyalty. We care deeply about us. But there is still a boundary. There is still them. The needs and perspectives of those outside our group do not feel as real, as urgent. Think of a devoted sports fan. Their identity is wrapped up in their team. They feel the joy of victory and the agony of defeat as if it were their own. They share a bond with thousands of strangers wearing the same colors. But the fans of the opposing team are not just different, they are the enemy. The love for us creates a blind spot toward them. This is the ethnocentric mind. For most of human history, this was the highest stage of collective development. Loyalty to tribe, to king, to nation was the ultimate moral value. But human consciousness can grow further. It can expand into the world-centric stage. At the world-centric stage, the circle of us expands to include all of humanity, regardless of nation, religion, or ethnicity. You begin to see that a person on the other side of the planet, with different beliefs and a different color skin, has the same fundamental hopes and fears as you do. Their life is as real as yours. Their suffering matters as much. This is the stage from which universal human rights are born. It is the perspective that allows a scientist in one country to value the discovery of a scientist in another country, even if they are political enemies. It is the moral impulse behind the environmental movement, the recognition that we all share one planet and are all connected. David, the brilliant but relationally clumsy engineer, was not stuck at the egocentric stage because he was selfish. He was stuck because no one had ever shown him another way to see. His growth began when a mentor sat him down and said, "David, your technical skills are extraordinary. But your impact on the people around you is diminishing your effectiveness. The ideas of others matter, not because they are as smart as you, but because they see things you cannot see. Their perspective is not a threat to your intelligence. It is an addition to it." This was a new lens. David began to practice. In meetings, he forced himself to listen without preparing his rebuttal. He asked questions. He acknowledged when others made good points. It was awkward at first, like learning a new language. But over time, something shifted. He began to genuinely value the input of his colleagues. His team started to thrive. And David felt something he had never felt before, a sense of connection, of being part of something larger than his own brilliant mind. This is growing up. It is not about becoming a different person. It is about expanding the lens through which you see the world. It is about recognizing that your perspective, however valid, is always partial. There is always more to see, more to include, more to understand. And each time you expand your lens, you take another step toward your true self. David was learning to expand his lens. He was growing from an egocentric orientation toward a more inclusive perspective. But growth is rarely linear. There were days when he fell back into old patterns. There were moments when he felt like a fraud, pretending to be someone he was not. This is normal. This is the nature of development. We take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. The staircase is spiral. We pass the same view again and again, but each time from a slightly higher elevation. This brings us to a crucial insight that the Buddha understood deeply. Growing up, expanding our identity, is not the same as waking up, realizing our true nature. They are two different dimensions of development, and they must work together. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this distinction. There was once a spiritual teacher, let us call him Anand, who was renowned for his profound meditative experiences. He could sit for hours in perfect stillness. He spoke eloquently about non-duality, about the illusion of the separate self. Students came from all over the world to study with him. They would sit in his presence and feel a deep peace, a sense of something vast and sacred. But Anand had a secret. He was deeply attached to his reputation. If a student left his community to study with another teacher, he would become furious. He would speak ill of that student, of the other teacher. He would feel betrayed, diminished. His inner peace would shatter, replaced by a seething resentment that could last for weeks. What was happening here? Anand had profound experiences of waking up. He had touched states of consciousness where the separate self dissolved. He had tasted the boundless, the formless, the non-dual. But his psychological structure, his sense of self in the relative world, had not grown up. It was still stuck at an egocentric stage. His identity was fragile, dependent on being the revered teacher, the center of attention. His spiritual experiences did not automatically mature his ego. They temporarily bypassed it, but they did not transform it. This is a danger that the Buddha warned against. He taught that realization must be integrated into every aspect of life. It is not enough to have a glimpse of enlightenment on the meditation cushion if you cannot maintain your compassion when someone cuts you off in traffic. The goal is not just to experience the mountain peak, but to bring the clarity of that peak back down into the valleys of everyday life. Modern psychology confirms this. You can have profound spiritual experiences at any stage of development. But the stage you are at will determine how you interpret those experiences. If you have a vision of unity while at the egocentric stage, you will likely interpret it as, I am the chosen one, the special messenger. Your ego will inflate to the size of your spiritual experience. This is inflation, and it is a common pitfall on the path. If you have the same vision at the ethnocentric stage, you will interpret it as, my people, my religion, are the chosen ones. You will become a crusader, convinced that your group has a divine mandate. History is filled with examples of this, from religious wars to political ideologies that claim a monopoly on truth. If you have that vision at the world-centric stage, you will interpret it as a confirmation of our shared humanity, our common ground. You will become more compassionate, more inclusive, more effective in your service to others. The spiritual experience matures you rather than inflating you. This is why waking up and growing up must go together. They are two wings of a bird. With only one wing, you will fly in circles. Let me tell you another story. This one is about a woman named Priya. Priya was a dedicated meditator for over 20 years. She had done numerous retreats, some lasting months. She could access deep states of peace and clarity. But she struggled with her mother. Every phone call, every visit home, left her feeling depleted and angry. Her mother was critical, demanding, never satisfied. Priya would return from a peaceful retreat, full of loving kindness for all beings, and within 5 minutes of talking to her mother, she would be reduced to a frustrated teenager. Priya's spiritual practice had given her access to profound states, but it had not healed the specific wound of her relationship with her mother. That required a different kind of work. It required growing up, understanding the developmental history of that relationship. It required cleaning up, facing the buried feelings of not being good enough, of needing approval, of old resentments. The meditation gave her the space and stability to do this work, but it could not do the work for her. The Buddha taught that the path has many factors, and they all support each other. Mindfulness supports ethical conduct. Ethical conduct supports concentration. Concentration supports wisdom. Wisdom deepens mindfulness. It is a holistic path. You cannot just focus on one factor and neglect the others and expect to reach the goal. So we must tend to all dimensions of our being. We must expand our lens through growing up, maturing our perspective beyond the narrow confines of ego and tribe. We must descend into the cellar through cleaning up, reclaiming the disowned parts of ourselves. And we must open to the sky through waking up, touching the formless awareness that is our true nature. These are not separate paths. They are three strands of a single rope. Pull on any one strand, and the others are drawn along. Neglect any one strand, and the rope weakens. We have explored the cellar of cleaning up and the expanding floors of growing up. Now we must turn our gaze upward, toward the sky. We must explore the path of waking up, the oldest journey of all. The Buddha's great gift to humanity was not a philosophy or a belief system. It was a map of consciousness itself. He mapped the territories of the mind with a precision that modern neuroscience is only beginning to appreciate. And at the heart of his map is a radical claim: the suffering we experience is not inevitable. It is the result of a mistaken identity. We believe we are something small and separate, a self that must be protected and defended. But in reality, we are something vast and boundless. We just forgot. Let me tell you a story about a woman named Elena. Elena was a successful lawyer, sharp and ambitious. She had climbed the ladder at her firm, winning cases, earning respect. But inside, she felt like an imposter. She lived with a constant hum of anxiety, a fear that any moment, someone would discover she was not as competent as she appeared. She drove herself relentlessly, working late, preparing endlessly, trying to stay one step ahead of exposure. One weekend, a friend invited her to a meditation retreat. Elena was skeptical. Sitting still and doing nothing felt like the opposite of productive. But she was exhausted, desperate enough to try anything. So she went. The first day was torture. Her mind raced with case files, with worries, with judgments about the people around her. The second day was worse. But on the third day, something shifted. She was focusing on her breath, as instructed. In, out. In, out. A thought arose: I am failing at this. And for the first time, instead of believing the thought, instead of spiraling into self-criticism, she simply watched it. She saw the thought arise, float by, and dissolve. And in the space after it dissolved, there was a moment of pure awareness, clear and open, untouched by the thought. In that moment, Elena had a direct experience of something the Buddha called the witness. She realized that she was not her thoughts. She was not her anxiety. She was not the imposter syndrome that had plagued her for years. She was the awareness in which all of these things arose and passed away. The thoughts were like clouds passing through a clear sky. The sky was not harmed by the clouds. It was not changed by them. It simply held them. This was Elena's first taste of waking up. It was not a permanent realization. The clouds returned soon enough. But now she knew there was a sky. She knew that beneath the chatter of her mind, there was a field of awareness that was always present, always untouched, always at peace. And that knowledge changed everything. The Buddha described this journey through states of consciousness. He spoke of the waking state, where we are identified with the body and the ego. He spoke of the dream state, where consciousness becomes fluid and creates its own reality. He spoke of the state of deep, dreamless sleep, where we touch a formless dimension of pure potential. And he spoke of a fourth state, which he called Turiya, the witness, the pure awareness that is present in all other states. Beyond even this, he pointed to a fifth state, non-duality, where the separation between witness and world completely dissolves. In this state, you do not just witness the clouds, you realize you are the sky and the clouds, the seer and the seen, all of it one single, luminous whole. Most of us spend our entire lives identified with the first state, the waking state. We believe we are the body, the thoughts, the feelings, the story. We mistake the clouds for the sky. This is the root of dukkha, of suffering. Because clouds are impermanent. They come and they go. If you identify with the clouds, you will be perpetually tossed about by the winds of circumstance. But when you begin to glimpse the sky, something fundamental shifts. You still experience the clouds. You still feel the storms. But you are not destroyed by them. You have a place of refuge, a home base of awareness that is not shaken. The storms still come, but they pass more quickly. They leave less wreckage. This is the promise of waking up. It is not an escape from life. It is a fuller engagement with life, from a place of deeper security. When you know yourself as the sky, you can welcome all weather with equanimity. You can hold joy and sorrow, success and failure, praise and blame, all within the same vast, open space of awareness. And in that holding, they lose their power to enslave you. Elena returned from her retreat and continued her legal work. But she was different. The anxiety was still there sometimes, but it no longer controlled her. She could watch it arise and choose how to respond. She was less reactive, more present, more effective. Her colleagues noticed a change. She seemed calmer, more confident, less driven by the need to prove herself. She was still the same Elena, but she had discovered something vast within herself. She had begun to wake up. Elena had tasted the witness. She had glimpsed the sky behind the clouds. But she soon discovered that glimpses are not enough. The clouds kept returning. The old patterns of anxiety, of self-doubt, of striving, they did not vanish overnight. She would have moments of clarity, of spacious awareness, and then an hour later she would be caught in a whirlwind of worry about an upcoming trial. The sky was still there, but she kept forgetting it. This is where the path of waking up meets the path of growing up. The glimpse is the beginning, not the end. The real work is to stabilize that glimpse, to integrate it into every aspect of life. And that integration requires a mature psychological structure. It requires a self that is strong enough to hold the experience of no self. Let me tell you a story about a man named Marcus. Marcus was a spiritual seeker in his 20s. He devoured books on enlightenment. He attended retreat after retreat. He had powerful experiences. He felt waves of bliss, visions of light, a sense of dissolving into oneness. He believed he was close to liberation. But Marcus had a problem. He could not hold a job. He could not maintain a relationship. His finances were a mess. He would have a profound spiritual experience, feel immense peace, and then return to his apartment and find it filled with unwashed dishes and unpaid bills. The contrast was jarring. He felt like two different people. The enlightened being on the cushion and the dysfunctional mess off it. Marcus was trying to build a penthouse without a foundation. He was reaching for the highest spiritual states while neglecting the basic work of psychological maturity. He had not grown up. His ego was still fragile, still reactive, still full of unexamined shadows. The spiritual experiences, rather than healing him, were actually inflating him. They gave him a story of being special, of being advanced, that covered over his underlying immaturity. This is a trap that the Buddha warned against. He taught that the path requires a strong foundation. Before you can successfully engage in advanced meditation practices, you need to establish ethical conduct, to stabilize your mind, to cultivate wholesome qualities. You need to build a container strong enough to hold the transformative energy that arises from deep practice. Modern psychology calls this having a strong ego before you can transcend ego. It sounds paradoxical, but it is essential truth. You cannot let go of something you do not have. If your sense of self is fragile, fragmented, undeveloped, then trying to dissolve it will not lead to liberation. It will lead to disintegration, to confusion, to psychological breakdown. Think of it like a tree. A young sapling cannot bear fruit. It needs time to grow, to develop strong roots, a sturdy trunk, spreading branches. Only then can it support the weight of fruit. In the same way, we need to develop a strong, healthy sense of self before we can bear the fruit of self-transcendence. We need to grow up before we can wake up fully. This was Marcus's blind spot. He wanted the fruit without the tree. His healing began when he found a teacher who saw through his spiritual stories. This teacher did not praise his profound experiences. Instead, she asked him simple, uncomfortable questions. How are your relationships? How is your work? How do you handle conflict? How do you care for your body? Marcus had no good answers. He had been so focused on the spiritual heights that he had neglected the earthly ground. The teacher gave him a prescription. For 1 year, he was to stop seeking special spiritual experiences. He was to get a job and keep it. He was to pay his bills on time. He was to call his mother once a week. He was to clean his apartment every Sunday. He was to engage in basic, mundane, grounding practices. Marcus was offended at first. This felt like a step backward. He was a seeker of truth, not a housekeeper. But he was desperate enough to try. So he got a job at a bookstore. He started showing up consistently. He began to build routines. He made his bed every morning. He opened a savings account. Slowly, imperceptibly, something shifted. The frantic seeking quieted down. The anxiety about enlightenment lessened. He started to feel more solid, more present in his own life. He still meditated, but now it was grounded in the reality of his daily existence. The insights he had on the cushion began to inform how he interacted with customers at the bookstore, how he responded to his roommates' annoying habits, how he handled disappointment. After a year, Marcus returned to his teacher. He was different. Quieter. More solid. He still had questions, but they were no longer desperate. The teacher smiled. "Now," she said, "you are ready to practice. This is the integration of waking up and growing up. The spiritual path is not an escape from being human. It is the full embrace of being human. It is the process of building a self that is strong enough, mature enough, and whole enough to finally let go into the vastness of what we truly are. The tree must grow tall and strong before it can bear the fruit of self-transcendence. And when the fruit is ripe, it falls effortlessly, without struggle, without striving. Thank you for staying with me. Let us go deeper still." Marcus learned to build a foundation. He learned that spiritual practice is not separate from daily life. It is daily life, lived with awareness. But as he stabilized, as he grew more solid, a new question arose. If he was building a healthy self, if he was becoming more functional, more mature, then what was the point of all this talk about no self, about transcendence? Was he just building a better ego, a more polished prison? This is a subtle and important question. It brings us to the heart of the Buddhist path and to the final integration we must explore. Let me tell you a story about a woman named Simone. Simone was a therapist. She had done years of her own work. She had cleaned up her shadow, faced her childhood wounds, built a strong and healthy sense of self. She was good at her job, helping others do the same. But she felt something was missing. There was a depth she could not access, a peace that eluded her. She knew her psychology inside and out, but she did not know herself. Simone began to explore meditation. At first, it felt like more of the same. Watching thoughts, observing emotions, noticing patterns. Her therapeutic training served her well. But then something shifted. She began to touch a dimension that was not psychological. It was not about her story, her history, her wounds. It was simply awareness itself, vast and empty and luminous. For the first time, she understood what her Buddhist teacher meant when he said, "You are not the wave. You are the ocean." This was a different kind of knowing. It was not knowledge about herself. It was direct recognition of what she had always been, beneath all the layers of conditioning. The wave had realized it was ocean. And nothing was ever the same. But here is the crucial point. When the wave realizes it is ocean, it does not stop being a wave. It still rises and falls. It still interacts with other waves. It still has its unique shape, its particular expression. The only difference is that it no longer takes itself so seriously. It no longer fears its own dissolving. It knows that its wave form is temporary, but its ocean nature is eternal. This is what the Buddha meant by liberation. It is not the destruction of the self. It is the end of clinging to the self as solid, permanent, separate. The wave still functions as a wave. It still experiences joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain. But it does so from a place of deep knowing. It knows it is ocean. And that knowledge changes everything. Simone continued her work as a therapist. But now she brought something new to her sessions. She still helped clients understand their patterns, heal their wounds, build healthier relationships. That work remained essential. But she also held a space for something more. She held the possibility that beneath all the stories, beneath all the wounds, beneath all the psychological structures, there was something untouched, something already whole, something that had never been damaged. She would sit with a client who was deep in despair, and she would not just help them understand the causes of their despair. She would also rest in her own awareness of the vast space in which that despair was arising. And sometimes, without a word being spoken, the client would feel it too. They would touch, for a moment, the sky behind the clouds. This is the integration. The psychological work of cleaning up and growing up prepares the ground. It clears away the debris. It builds a healthy container. And then the spiritual work of waking up reveals what has always been there, hidden beneath the debris. The container is not the goal. The goal is what the container holds. The wave is not the goal. The goal is the ocean expressing itself as that particular wave. There is a famous story in the Zen tradition about a monk who asked his teacher, "What is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West?" This was a common question, asking for the deepest truth of the Buddhist teaching. The teacher replied, "The cypress tree in the courtyard." The monk was confused. "Master, do not teach me with objects." The teacher said, "I am not teaching you with objects." The monk asked again, "What is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West?" The teacher replied again, "The cypress tree in the courtyard." This story points to non-duality. The deepest truth is not something separate from everyday life. It is not a special experience, a mystical state, a secret teaching. It is right here, right now, in the cypress tree, in the breath, in the sound of my voice, in the silence between words. The ocean is not somewhere else. The ocean is right here, as this wave, as this moment, as this ordinary, precious, fleeting life. Simone came to understand this. Her meditation practice did not take her away from life. It plunged her more deeply into life. She felt things more fully. She loved more completely. She suffered, yes, but her suffering was no longer a problem to be solved. It was just another wave arising and passing on the surface of the vast ocean that she was. This is the invitation for all of us. Not to escape our humanity, but to fully inhabit it. Not to destroy the self, but to see through it. Not to become something other than what we are, but to discover what we have always been. The wave realizing it is ocean. The dreamer waking up to find they were the dream all along. Simone had integrated her psychological work with her spiritual practice. She could hold both the wave and the ocean. But she noticed something else. The more she rested in awareness, the more her life took on a new quality. It was not that problems disappeared. Challenges still arose. Difficult people still appeared. But her relationship to it all had shifted. There was a sense of rightness, of fit, of things belonging exactly as they were. This brings us to the final piece of our exploration. It is what Carl Jung called individuation, and what the Buddha pointed to when he spoke of the middle way. It is the art of becoming fully yourself while also realizing you are more than yourself. Let me tell you a story about a man named Leo. Leo was a musician, a jazz pianist. For years, he struggled. He tried to play like his heroes, like the greats he admired. He imitated their styles, their phrasing, their solos. He was technically proficient, but something was missing. His playing was correct but lifeless. It did not move people. It did not move him. One night, after a particularly disappointing performance, Leo sat alone at the piano in the empty club. He was frustrated, ready to give up. He put his hands on the keys, not to play, just to feel them. And then, almost without intending to, he began to play. Not the rehearsed solos, not the imitations. Just whatever came. He played the frustration. He played the disappointment. He played the longing to be someone else. And then, slowly, he played something new. He played the sound of just being Leo. It was awkward at first, raw, unpolished. But it was real. It was him. A small sound came from the darkness of the empty club. An older man, the club owner, was sitting in the back, listening. He had heard Leo play many times. He walked toward the stage and said simply, "There you are. I've been waiting to hear you." This is individuation. It is the lifelong process of becoming the person you actually are, not the person you think you should be. It is stripping away the imitations, the shoulds, the expectations, until what remains is simply you. Authentic. Unique. Irreplaceable. The Buddha did not teach that we should all become the same. He taught that we should all become free. And freedom looks different in different people. A free person is not a cookie-cutter enlightened being. A free person is fully, vividly, unapologetically themselves. Their unique gifts emerge. Their unique voice is heard. Their unique contribution is made. This is why we cannot skip the work of growing up and cleaning up. That work clears away the debris that covers our authentic self. The shadow work, the healing, the maturation. All of it is like cleaning the dust off a window so the light can shine through clearly. And the light that shines through you is different from the light that shines through anyone else. It has your color, your texture, your warmth. Leo's music transformed after that night. He still had technique. He still knew the tradition. But now he used it as a foundation for his own expression. He played music that only he could play. And people felt it. They did not just hear notes. They encountered a human being, fully present, fully alive, fully himself. That encounter moved them. It woke something up in them. This is the gift of individuation. When you become yourself, you give others permission to become themselves. Your authenticity calls forth their authenticity. Your courage inspires their courage. You become not just a fulfilled individual, but a catalyst for the fulfillment of others. The Buddha's last words were, "All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence." He did not say, "Be like me." He said, "Strive on. Do your own work. Find your own path. Become your own Buddha." The teaching is a finger pointing at the moon. Do not mistake the finger for the moon. And do not try to point with someone else's finger. Use your own. Leo continued to play jazz, but now it was his jazz. He still faced challenges. He still had moments of doubt. But he had found his center, his own voice. And from that center, he could engage with life fully, creatively, authentically. The wave had found its unique shape within the ocean. This is the invitation for you. Not to become a copy of anyone else. Not to fit into anyone else's mold. But to discover, through the hard work of growing up, the courageous work of cleaning up, and the profound opening of waking up, who you really are. And then to live that, fully and without apology. The world does not need another imitation. The world needs you, exactly as you are, fully awake, fully alive, fully yourself. Thank you for walking this entire path with me. We have traveled far together. We began with Maya and her emptiness, her discovery that the wound she was running from was actually the doorway inward. We descended into the cellar with James, facing the shadow, reclaiming the disowned parts of himself. We expanded our lens with David, growing from the narrow view of egocentric consciousness toward a wider, more inclusive perspective. We touched the sky with Elena, glimpsing the witness, the vast awareness behind the mind. We learned from Marcus that we must build a strong container before we can hold the transformative fire of awakening. We watched Simone integrate the psychological and the spiritual, holding both wave and ocean. And we heard Leo find his own unique voice, his authentic expression within the vastness. Now we arrive here, at the end of our time together, which is also the beginning of your own journey. There is a final story I want to share with you. It is an old story from the Buddhist tradition, though I will tell it in my own way. There was once a young woman who had heard about a great master living in a cave high in the mountains. She had been searching for truth for years, reading scriptures, visiting teachers, practicing diligently. But something was still missing. She felt she needed the blessing of a fully enlightened being to take her to the next level. So she made the arduous journey up the mountain, through forests and across streams, until she finally reached the cave. Inside, sitting in perfect stillness, was an old monk with eyes that seemed to hold infinite compassion. She bowed deeply, offered the small gifts she had brought, and then poured out her heart. She told him of her years of seeking, her doubts, her struggles, her longing for liberation. The master listened patiently. When she finished, he smiled and said, "Tell me, what do you think is missing?" The woman was taken aback. "Everything is missing. I am not enlightened. I suffer. I am still trapped in the illusion of self." The master nodded. "And who is it that suffers? Who is it that is trapped?" The woman opened her mouth to answer, but then stopped. The question hung in the air between them. She looked inside, searching for the one who suffered, the one who was trapped. She found thoughts about suffering. She found feelings of frustration. But the one who owned them, the solid self at the center, she could not find it anywhere. The master said, "You have traveled all this way to find what you have never lost. You are like a fish in the ocean searching for water. You are like a flame searching for fire. You are what you seek." In that moment, something shifted in the woman. Not a new experience. Not a flash of light. Just a recognition of what had always been true. The seeking fell away. The seeker fell away. And there was only this, only here, only now, complete and whole. She stayed with the master for some time, learning how to live from this recognition. But the real work began when she walked back down the mountain, back into the world of relationships, of work, of dishes and duties and difficult people. The real work was bringing this recognition into every moment of her life. The real work was embodying it. This is your work now. Not to stay on the mountain, but to bring the mountain into the valley. Not to escape life, but to live it more fully, more authentically, more freely. The map we have explored together. The paths of growing up, cleaning up, and waking up, all woven together in the unique expression of your individuation. This map is not the destination. It is a guide for the journey. Use it. Refer to it when you are lost. But do not mistake it for the actual terrain. The actual terrain is your life, right now, in this moment. The breath moving in and out of your body. The sensations arising and passing. The thoughts floating through the sky of your awareness. The people you love and the people who challenge you. The work you do and the rest you take. All of it is the path. All of it is the teaching. The Buddha's final words were not just for his immediate disciples. They were for all of us, for all time. All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence. Everything changes. Everything passes. The good times and the bad times. The highs and the lows. The insights and the confusions. All of it is impermanent. So do not cling. Do not grasp. Do not waste your life trying to hold on to what is already slipping away. But do not despair either. Because what you truly are, the awareness in which all of this appears and disappears, that is not conditioned. That is not impermanent. That is your true nature, always present, always awake, always free. And recognizing that, resting in that, living from that, is the highest freedom. Strive on with diligence. Not with striving, not with grasping, but with gentle, persistent, loving attention. Show up for your life. Do the work of growing up. Do the work of cleaning up. Open to the grace of waking up. And let it all express itself through the unique instrument that is you. The world is waiting for your song. Not a copy of anyone else's song. Your song. The one only you can sing. The one you came here to sing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for walking this path with me. May you be happy. May you be free. May you become, fully and completely, your true self. See you on the path.